Today, the ballot count continues. Joe Biden inches closer to the White House as he pulls ahead of Donald Trump in key battleground states, Pennsylvania and Georgia. If Biden clinches the presidency, he'll take the reins of a country ravaged by the global COVID-19 pandemic as cases keep rising to unprecedented levels. We dig into how a potential Biden administration plans to contain the outbreak. And finally, this election had Americans reaching for their wallets and their booze. We break down the most expensive presidential race in history and take a look at surging mobile alcohol orders. I'm Mackenzie Sigalos, and this is CNBC After Hours. Stocks surge higher this historic election week. The Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ all logging their biggest weekly gain in 7 months. Every single one of the 11 S&P sectors finished off the week in the green as well, with the tech sector holding the top spot, soaring nearly 10% higher just this week. Of course, the backdrop to this impressive market performance has been a 4-day-long effort to determine the next president of the United States. As of now, the race is still too close for NBC News to project a winner. But 2 critical developments did occur today. Joe Biden overtook Donald Trump in 2 crucial swing states as more of the mail-in ballots get counted. Those are Pennsylvania and Georgia. The Trump campaign, for its part, is vowing additional legal challenges on top of the handful that it's already filed, 2 of which have been tossed by judges. Now, Biden's lead is slim in Georgia, and the Secretary of State there has already said that he expects a recount. But it's Pennsylvania that's captured national attention. The state has 20 electoral votes, and if they're awarded to Biden, it's game over. The White House would be his. Joe Biden may very well become the president-elect. But his lead in the PA vote isn't the only count that's growing. U.S. coronavirus cases are hitting new highs. 2 days in a row, the country reported new daily cases of more than 100,000. Many public health experts have advised Americans to prepare for a difficult winter and rising death counts. CNBC's Meg Terrell is back with After Hours today. She can break down what moves a potential Biden administration would make to contain the once-in-a-century pandemic.
The Biden campaign has laid out a 7-point plan on COVID-19 that they would implement if they take office January 20th. And number 1 on their list of priorities is testing. They want to establish free, reliable testing for every American, double the number of drive-through sites, and just make it very accessible. Second, they talk about using the Defense Production Act to increase supplies of personal protective equipment. So things like masks, gowns, gloves, everything that our healthcare workers and others need to protect themselves as we're going through this pandemic. Third, they talk about providing national guidance and also resources to help schools, small businesses, and families. And the national plan is really an important one because what we've seen under the current administration is really allowing the states to take the lead. Fourth, they talk about vaccines and treatments, establishing a $25 billion investment in a plan for vaccine manufacturing and distribution. However, by the time we get to January 20th, we do expect that that will be underway. Number 5, protect older Americans and others at high risk. And as part of that, they want to create a national pandemic dashboard where Americans can check in real time what the transmission dynamics are like in their zip code so they can make decisions really on the local level. Now, 6, they talk about pandemic prevention, reestablishing positions that they have essentially in the White House National Security Council and other positions to do pandemic surveillance all the time to try to prevent us from getting into this situation again. 7th is mask mandates nationwide. Now, they don't talk about this as a sort of federal decree. They actually talk about it through states and local governments, but really trying to encourage every American to wear a mask. Public health experts believe that the Biden-Harris plan as laid out is a more nationally coordinated effort, and they say that's needed because states just can't do it all themselves. So the argument from the public health community has been this does need to be a nationally coordinated response really on every step of the way. And from what they're hearing from the Biden campaign, certainly an approach that is more of a national leadership while still depending on local governments to do things like implementing mask mandates. So regardless of this plan from the Biden-Harris campaign, President Trump is president no matter what until January 20th. And so the expectation is that the Trump administration's lead on the coronavirus will continue throughout the winter as we are seeing case numbers climb ever higher, now surpassing 120,000.
Okay, let's get to our sound check. Here's a roundup of the day's biggest action and what the top newsmakers and business leaders had to say on CNBC's airwaves.
I think there will be a peaceful transfer of power. And I think the markets have been remarkably calm and resilient and actually rather bullish these past 6 months, going back to, the third week of March or so.
I think that we will get, if necessary, we will get a stimulus bill. And I think we'll get good news on the vaccine for the virus.
We're right at a tipping point. It's not just the number of cases that are being diagnosed, but we need to look at hospitalizations, which are growing very quickly across the whole country. 53,000 patients currently hospitalized, 10,500 in the ICU.
The jobs report, the bottom line is that it was a pretty big number. Unemployment is in aggregate falling, and that comes alongside of other high-frequency macroeconomic data that is extraordinarily solid.
All right, so everything about the 2020 election has been massive. Early voting broke records. Turnout across the board, huge. And then there's the money. This election cycle is set to go down as the most expensive in history, as big money poured in from the likes of billionaires on both sides, like Mike Bloomberg and Sheldon Adelson. But with two crucial Senate seats still up for grabs in Georgia, and where at least one, if not both of those races will go to a second runoff election in January, it looks like tens of millions more dollars are set to funnel into political contests. CNBC.com's Brian Schwartz reports on money in politics, and he can break down this historic campaign cash.
So the 2020 election is going to be worth about $14 billion when all is said and done. That's between presidential and the congressional elections. That's clearly the most expensive campaign that we've seen in U.S. history. And I think that's really indicative of the type of election we've seen so far. Tons of TV ads put out in the key battleground states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. And we're seeing how that plays out now in the electoral college fight as we're getting closer to deciding who wins the presidency. For Mike Bloomberg, it wasn't just $100 million in Florida, Ohio, and Texas for Joe Biden. It was also $1 billion for his own campaign for president that only ended up winning, a few dozen delegates. It was really an over $1 billion I wouldn't say failure, but an over $1 billion bet that did not largely go his way, to put it lightly. And then what happened after that is really simple. He then decided to come in late and spend $100 million on Florida, Ohio, and Texas for Biden. And then Joe Biden ended up losing those states, according to NBC News' projection. There is going to be a backlash against Bloomberg. There are going to be some fingers pointed at him, and I think there are already for some of the miscues that happened in Texas, Ohio, and the state of Florida. I think voters in Georgia are going to see tens of millions of dollars come their way for at least one Senate runoff in January and possibly two. The first one we know of is going to be involving Senator Kelly Loeffler. And she's somebody that is, an incumbent, a Republican incumbent. And the Republican strategists who are involved with, the upcoming campaign there, the next campaign, they say it's going to cost for them at least $100 million just for that race alone. And clearly, if there's another fight, another runoff involving Senator Perdue, then it's going to be even more than that. It's that the totals are going to go up even further. And so Democrats are expected to match that as well.
Okay, time for today's numbers round. Let's kick it off with 15,000. The price of Bitcoin has surged higher than $15,000, hitting a nearly 3-year high. The last time Bitcoin traded this high was January 2018. The cryptocurrency crossed the $15,000 threshold as the US dollar index falls to its lowest levels since September. Bitcoin has really been on a tear this year, more than doubling so far in 2020. Next is 67.66. Online alcohol delivery company Drizzly said that sales on their platform on Election Day were 67.66% higher than the previous 4 Tuesdays. The numbers were even higher in specific cities. Boston, for example, ordered 83% more alcohol on Election Day than on past Tuesdays. And in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, residents bought nearly 133% more. Now, blue states increased their liquor orders at a higher percentage than red states during this election. 75% higher for blue states compared with 33% higher for red states. And finally, 250. Another alcohol story for you. Tesla is getting into the booze business. The electric car company now lists Tesla Tequila on its website, available for the super reasonable price of $250. The lightning bolt-shaped bottle of tequila was originally part of a 2018 April Fool's Day joke by Elon Musk, in which he said that the automaker had filed for bankruptcy and the CEO was found surrounded by Tesla tequila bottles. That's it for After Hours, but before we go, here's one more thing to keep an eye on. Don't forget, it's still earnings season on Wall Street, when companies open up their books and disclose to the public how much money they are or are not making. And we've got some big names on deck. McDonald's, Disney, and Lyft all report quarterly results next week. Get all the numbers from these earnings reports, plus the latest details on the vote count in the presidential election by going to CNBC.com and downloading the CNBC app. We'll be back here at our home office every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday with a new edition of After Hours, so be sure to catch us then.